so I am thrilled to have you all join us this evening as we just have a conversation with Luaco Holland. One of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is his vision. We're going to talk about leadership, the importance of transformational leadership. We're going to just have some conversation around, um, how he feels that his platform and the things that he wants to do will help really continue to move our district, the different areas forward. And so we thank you all for being with us tonight from the various areas, particularly 2 and area 4. But regardless, we just thank each and every one of you all for being here. So I want to get started tonight with just highlighting, one of the things, hopefully everyone was able to read the communication that came out from ANCA, but with the newsletters from the 2 candidates. And one of the things that I saw and read on Brother Holland's newsletter was just the role that he has with his wife and his family and how he navigates leading and co-managing, and what does that look like. And so, one of the things I'm very curious about is leadership is not so much about a degree. I mean, it's not about always having a title, but it really is centered around the ability to motivate people, encourage those around you, while having capacity to grow, to adapt, to learn. And so, Brother Holland, I would love for us to start the conversation tonight by you sharing your experiences with leading within Alpha, and what are some of the outcomes that you've been able to achieve while in those various positions.
Okay, I can do that definitely, brothers. Good evening again. I am excited that you all are here. So let's get into it. When I talk in all of the chapter conversations I have, I talk a lot about leading at all levels, at the chapter level, all the way up to the general organization. We'll start with the chapter level. Having been the president of the Academy Lambda chapter, sporting my merch tonight. Shout out to the Gastonia chapter. I led the chapter from 2017 to 2020. We saw steady growth. We went from 17 to 34 members. While I was leading the chapter, we competed for chapter of the year, something we had never done before. And we reestablished our presence in the greater Gaston community as a change agent organization. So that was probably the culminating activity, if you will, as far as being elected by the brothers of my chapter to lead the chapter, and being trusted with the ability to make things happen on their behalf. So as I transitioned out of that role, I've currently been serving as the Area 5 director for the past 4 years. Working as the Area 5 director, I've had an opportunity to support Brother Turnage with the director of conventions in his work as an advisor of sorts, just being there as he needs support. Leadership, again, Brother Caldwell, isn't necessarily about a title, but it's about how you impact people, how you empower people, specifically brothers. So I feel like we've had very solid district conferences within our control in that planning work that we've gotten done. So, from a regional perspective, I lead a team of 8 in the technology aspirations of our region. We're working on some really cool data collection procedures and processes, and leveraging a lot of different technologies in that regard. Of course, we do the convention technology footprint, getting all the projectors and the logistics, and working with the executives at the spaces that we occupy for those weekends. So leadership really is what I do, but I also know how to follow. We talked about, the newsletter, and Jay runs the house, and I let her run the house, and I have no problem with it because I know I can't lead everywhere. I'll gladly do exactly as I'm told. because I understand that as we continue to raise Lucas and Lurie, you can't be the chief in every scenario. She has a better pulse on what's going on around here most days, and she helps us make sure it's not a madhouse. So I'm thankful for that. And it gives me the opportunity to continue to lead outside of the house because I understand how to be a really good follower. I served as chapter vice president before I came to the president of Academy Lambda, and I served under some really good chapter presidents. Harrison Conyers, my brother Harrison Conyers was a very uh, informative and empowering leader when I was vice president, and gave me an opportunity to continue to grow and not make too many mistakes in that role as I continue to learn. But he gave me space to grow and space to continue to develop an alpha. So that really is the essence of what Anchor Reimagine is going to be from a leadership perspective, offering brothers opportunities and spaces to grow and to continue to learn about alpha and continue to serve in alpha so that they can grow as leaders. Because if we don't grow as leaders in this organization, then we're not really hitting the mission. So I know that was probably long-winded, but that's leadership. I mean, we're leading at all levels in the Holland administration. So,
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And one of the things that, again, just taking from your newsletter is, there was an endorsement from the mayor of Gastonia, and one of the things that the mayor highlighted was your ability and engagement with community service and serving others. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was last year at the district conference in Gastonia, you were instrumental in your role as the area director in helping to really set up the HBCU fair and the college fair that we had at the district conference. What does community service look like in the Holland administration, and then how does that really translate into what ways Anchor can really expand our role within the community?
so I think from an Anchor perspective, we expand our role in the community by making sure that our alumni chapters are focused on community service. I was the Area 5 director when the convention came to Gastonia, but I had the distinct honor of serving as the local convention chair also for that event. So yeah, we definitely got the HBCU fair off the ground because it was a very vital event for our community, and especially in the space that we had it. We had it at Tabernacle Baptist Church. That area is a somewhat of a low income area, so the ability for us to bring in colleges and allow those individuals or those young kids to see what college could potentially be, providing a meal to those young students and their families in what we have deemed as a food desert in terms of being close to a grocery store in local proximity. We brought food into that space to meet that need for that day. Advocacy and education is also one of those things that we're going to focus on in my potential administration because we have to reach our middle schoolers and elementary school children earlier to make sure that they're set up for success in high school. So it's imperative, that we continue to develop out what the unified mentorship curriculum is going to look like. I know in the Academy Lambda chapter, we've had Read to Achieve, and that'll be something that we'll also try to build into that framework of impacting the pre-high school grades to make sure that they're set up for success long term. I really feel like if we can tackle the pipeline to getting our kids into high school and into college, it'll benefit Alpha in the long run because then we have prospective members, wink, wink, nod, nod, that end up becoming brothers because we set them up for success in the formative years.
So, and I want to, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I've got a 14-year-old, and there's 2 rooms over for me that is um, overly excited about the possibility of one day becoming an alpha. And he's looking for those mentorship and other opportunities that our chapter can provide. And so, when we look at the transition from high school to college and we start to think about our college brothers, what are some ways that we can really engage our college brothers more? Like, what are your thoughts around college brother engagement and how we can continue to foster and develop that relationship? And then what it looks like in terms of getting college brothers into the alumni chapters?
We have to meet our college brothers where they are. When I was chapter president, that was the position that I took when I had to lead other men. It's easy to lead kids, or it's easier to lead people that you may feel like are under you. When you have to lead people that are older than you and that have more seasoned experience and they're willing to be led, you have to meet them where they are. So that's a position I would take in dealing with and engaging with our college brothers. We got to meet them where they are. We got to understand their challenges, and we got to help them through their challenges. While we need to focus on the business of alpha, that is usually not where we find our connection with our college brothers. So let's meet them in the social aspects of what fraternity life looks like and bring them along to the business aspects. Most people know that right now in Area 5, we have the tailgate series going on. And I feel like I touched on this last week, but I think it bears repeating. The tailgate is a social opportunity for us to really impact our communities on those college campuses. Because what you see is when we went to New Zeta up in Western Carolina this past weekend, their entire minority population matriculated past us through some point in the day. And we got an opportunity to engage with perspectives, if you will. And then we also got a chance to engage with the campus officials. And it really showed New Zeta in a positive light because they now know, they being the university officials, now know that New Zeta has the support that they need. And I really feel like the tailgate series really is a proof of concept because it's more than just social. It touches administration, it touches, intake, it touches a lot of different things under the umbrella of fellowship. So being creative in that regard also gets our college brothers engaged because they get an opportunity to help with the planning process. Brother Aline and the New Zeta brothers did a phenomenal job last week with the coordination and the preparation. We got there coming up the mountain, and they told us what they needed us to do, how we needed to do it. We did it, and it was successful. So I see more of that in the Holland administration because that is how we connect with the next generation. I've talked about in certain chapter meetings and just general conversation, the Charles H. Wesley Recognition Program. I had an opportunity to connect with the brothers of Gamma Beta last night, and I asked them, what do you think would be a suitable prize for winning this monthly award? And I got $5,000, I got $10,000, I got a MacBook. So these brothers have some high aspirations, but it's good to have that type of engagement with them so that they know that their input matters. That is another thing that you'll see in this administration. Again, meeting them where they are and engaging them in solutioning potential output and potential possibility for the district. So,
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think what we're also dealing with is we've got college chapters of various sizes. We got some that have really low membership, and then we have some that right in area 4 where it was one of the largest college chapters in Alpha. So what are some thoughts you have around really helping to strengthen our college chapters? And then also, some could be said about our alumni chapters. So what are some additional ways, particularly, like if you look at it from a continuum perspective, how can we really, really help to strengthen our college chapters and our alumni chapters.
So the collegiate transition program really is going to be multifaceted because we do have to support our college brothers in a different way post COVID. So we put together the Standard of Seven Commission in the context of the campaign, where we're going to focus on standing up our task force. I want to take a look at reorganizing how the district committees work, getting committees working together to support our college brothers. We need to really partner with our university officials and helping them understand where our challenges are as an organization so that they can support us through those and we can understand their challenges so that as we do initiate brothers on their campuses, the brothers have a full understanding of how they need to support their university to continue to foster that collaborative relationship. Our advisors continue to need support, and they need more support. Based on the conversations I've had with them, we need to really sit down and take a hard look at what makes the alpha advisor role a tangible role that brothers want to feel and add value to going long term further into the administration. The College Brothers Summit is going to be a 36-hour experience for our college brothers where they'll get the opportunity to come and fellowship and engage with college brothers across the state. And I want to do it at a time that the college brothers feels like is advantageous. So we don't have a target in the calendar yet, but we definitely need to make sure that we get that done because the college brothers have talked about having protected space outside of SEBR where they can really come to understand who they are working with in the state of North Carolina. So you asked me about the alumni chapters, so let's get into that. Having come from a smaller alumni chapter, I do understand that the taxes and the apportionments that we have to pay can be challenged. So just understanding and making sure that those smaller chapters have budgets, taking a look at how they're budgeted, providing best practices around fundraising opportunities, also crowdsourcing. We're all somewhat clustered in areas with larger or smaller alumni chapters. How do we work collaboratively to, somewhat split the pot on fundraising? And then, there's also foundations, if your chapter can support that type of endeavor, foundations that provide scholarship and offset, your community programs and engagement would also be another way that the alumni chapter can feel supported and make sure that they have what they need to support their undergrad chapters if they have an undergrad chapter, or to just, thrive in their community and not just survive.
I think that's a good segue into a question by Brother King around really talking a little bit about your 30, 60, 90-day vision.
Okay.
And, if you could expand, the execution of your plans post-election, what would that look like from a 30, 60, 90-day perspective?
So 30 days, I want to sit down and take a look at who wants to serve. So we got to make sure that we fill out the team. And I'm a huge proponent of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If there are brothers that want to continue to serve in the Holland administration, we have those conversations about where they could potentially fit. But we do open up and call for leadership across the district in the first 30 days. I am working with an HR practitioner on coming up with job duties and responsibilities for roles. I do understand that while brothers are ambitious and want to serve, they have to understand what the desired outcomes are. So getting those defined and posted so that brothers can apply to them will be what we do in the 60-day time frame. The first 30 days is going to be imperative for me to get with the current sitting district director and do knowledge transition. I don't want to leave anything that may be in flight as an opportunity for it to fall through the cracks. So making sure that I do that proper knowledge transition with the outgoing district director, understand challenges he saw, get a view into opportunities that he may have seen, so that we can lay them against the strategy and the plan that we want to execute in our administration. And then come in, rounding out the 90 days, we plan to announce who the slate will be, the leadership slate will be, and then I'll bring the leadership slate together in that 90-day period of time to talk about my expectations for them to serve in the roles that they'll be in. We'll look to also get planned in that 90 days, the leadership retreat for the executive team, and 30, 60, 90, that puts us going into the summer. And again, we have LDCEI like right on the heels of being, what is it, sworn in at the regional convention. So we definitely got to make sure we get our advertising out about who, what, when, so that the chapters that want to send kids to participate have all the details that they need to do so.
And I think to add to that, I think one of the things that you mentioned on your website was about a platform. And, does that fall within that 30, 60, 90 day in terms of launching that or sharing more information about that for the Brotherhood?
Yeah, so in that 30, 60, 90-day window, we need to get our district surgeon general appointed, because he'll work on what that continuum of support is going to look like, so that we can provide those supportive services to the brothers in that window, as well as the director of technology. He will have work to bear to get that platform stood up, working with the district surgeon general. So that definitely will be a part of the mix.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Another good question that came in, and I think ties into this too, because you mentioned sort of the time frame post election leading to the summer, which, as we know, goes very quickly, which will lead directly into the next district conference. And so, Brother Hudson mentioned district directors have struggled making the district conference a financially viable event. What are your ideas for any changes in this area, and what are your thoughts around implementing those changes as we look to make the district conference a more financially viable event?
So 3 things immediately come to mind, Brother Hudson. One, when we set the job duties and descriptions, we also internally need to talk about overhead. I think a lot of times in the conferences that I've worked on, it's not financially viable because everybody that has a quote unquote title feels entitled to certain perks. Well, in the context of that job description and the duties and responsibilities, we'll make it known what those perks are. They may or may not include a discounted rate on your registration or your hotel. And I feel like we can cut the overhead from that perspective. I also feel like we need to add a leadership perspective to our district conference and entertain sponsors. If we can entertain sponsors that are solely focused on education, leadership development, recruiting for corporate America, those are the types of mutually beneficial partnerships that I talk about in operational refinement that we need to codify. But we got to get into it early. I also feel like when we have more runway to negotiate with a property, we're not necessarily held by the tail because we get into the 11th hour and we have to take what we can get. So being very intentional about getting our locations picked, working with the Conventions and Visitors Bureau to figure out what types of subsidies they may have for us being there, setting the internal expectation for leadership and committees on what the perks of the role will be, so that everybody understands when we go into the conference what the budget is going to look like. And then, unfortunately, having to say no. Like, I know it's uncomfortable. I know we don't want to, but we can't do everything. The district conference is to convene, to conduct the business of Alpha, and we don't need it to function as a slush fund because of whatever reasons. We just got to make sure that we clearly identify what the perks will be for our volunteers or volunteer brothers, so that they have clear understanding when they come to the conference, what we're going to get into, and making sure that we have someone working on sponsorships to offset some of the cost for the conference would be a good thing. And going back to, well, that all sounds good. It absolutely does, because I've done it. You talk about coming to Gastonia. I worked with the Convention and Visitors Bureau to get us close to $10,000 to offset the cost of our conference. So I have the ability to have those conversations with those leaders on finding a win-win when we're in the room to make sure that we can do exactly what I just proposed. So.
And I think to add to that, you alluded to it when you talked about sponsorships, but you also talked about earlier different collaborations. And
Yeah.
and I think maybe you can talk just briefly about that, how in addition to the sponsorships, if we're partnering with different organizations or companies or whatever, then that one helps with the financial burdens, but two, also with the programmatic engagement that we might want to do. So can you just briefly sort of talk about sort of the collaboration piece and how that's going to be, a strong component in the next administration?
Yeah. So like when we partner with companies and individuals, they're expecting some type of return on their investment. So just really outlining what those terms of engagement are and making sure that we meet those terms of engagement is what we have to do. Uh, Once we identify the key partners that we need to work with, just being transparent with the brothers on what our expectation in that engagement is and that agreement is, and then manage to it by putting those programmatic things in place to satisfy the requirement, is what you should expect to see. Because again, we've done it. I mean, I've worked on conferences for 5, 6 years now. So I understand the internal workings of what it takes to pull one off and what it takes to work with partners. And I feel like the consortium can also help us somewhat in that regard as we continue to have conversations on mutually beneficial returns on investment from both entities.
I think sort of a follow-up Brother Hudson had was
Mhm.
like the idea about sponsors. You talked about curtailing in-house expectations, and you mentioned that there's a lot of uncontrolled expenses that come from outside the district. Any more sort of feedback on that?
Yeah, so those, when you talk about uncontrolled expenses coming from outside the district, I assume you're referring to as we have guests to come and be with us for our conferences. It's just setting the expectation with my peers, my peer district directors, is like, look, I represent these brothers. These brothers are not with this. So unfortunately, I may not be able to accommodate you in that regard. And I need to be expected to do the same thing when I go visit with them. Or either it is none at all, or we find a way to offset the cost of one night. But just having that conversation again, working vertically and horizontally with all the leaders is what I need to do. And that means working with my left and my right and making sure they understand the wishes of my district is how we control those expenses. The hotel and the conference space, I feel like are also external expenses that we can control. We control them by getting to the table sooner rather than later and having conversations to create that win-win further up in the window so that we can communicate to the brothers what the expectations are for their participation and how it impacts them to be there.
Excellent. Thank you, brother. Are there any other questions? I'm going to sort of keep the floor open. If there are questions, please feel free to raise your hand or type them in the chat. And we'll definitely make sure that we acknowledge you and raise your question on the floor. While brothers are thinking, if there are some questions, and Brother Hudson, I see your question, and we're going to come back to that. I do want to just ask this sort of broad question: why now? Like, why run for district director now? What is motivating you to really want to help lead our state to continue to grow and be the best alpha man that we can be?
So I'll tell you this, working at the district conference last year, the hospitality position that we took, getting to see brothers interact with each other from across the state, understanding that they're human first, they're man first, providing space for them to continue to fellowship, was one, because we were a brotherhood before we were a business. Two, we need to impact our communities in a more meaningful way. I feel like the work that I've done as chapter president of ADB Lambda chapter around service and advocacy for my community, I think we can do on a larger scale. I know we can do on a larger scale if we just coordinate and communicate. And then finally, uh, I am ever evolving as a brother, as a man, and I want to take on this role for continued development as a leader. We always talk about what's in it for me, or what the ROI is for an individual. It is my continued development. I've done the work at every level, and I want to sit in this seat to bring about the change that I've been talking about now for the past few weeks. So,
Brothers, are there any other questions? I do see that Brother Hudson has posted another question, which I think is another good question. Hopefully, brothers, you all know that within the state, we do have the Education Consortium of North Carolina, which is our nonprofit foundation here in the state. And if you ever purchase one of the license plates, the anchor license tags, that helps to support the foundation. And one of the continued questions is, what's the role, what's the engagement like that you foresee with the foundation and with the district?
perfect. I appreciate that question, Brother Hudson. So, the Greensboro conference, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, could have been longer than that. I ran into Brother Craig Reed, and I asked Brother Reed, could I assist him with getting the website set up for the consortium? So everybody that knows Brother Reed says absolutely. So then you come, you get a title, you do your work. So having sat on the consortium as the director of technology and helping whatever Brother Reed needs help with, I understand our role as Anchor as partner. You all, the EdConc is not a savings and loan for the district. And I recognize that. While I understand that a lot of the revenue the consortium is provided comes from the license plate, again, that's a mutually beneficial relationship. I feel like if we can get our agreements together and we get our standard operating procedures in place to access the funds in a meaningful way that meet the charter and the mission of the consortium, then that is how we partner with each other. We make sure that the district understands, okay, brothers, if you have foundations, this is how you need to access this money. You submit the paperwork and do it the right way. Because while, they're holding that money for those license plates, they are a nonprofit entity. There's no nonprofit entity that is beholden to any other external organization to that nonprofit entity. So I want to make sure that we put the framework in place to receive the funds that we need to do the programming that we want to do to impact our communities in a meaningful way. But we got to get our processes in alignment to make sure that we can do it and communicate out to the brothers how they can do the same thing.
Awesome.
Yeah. You
Thank
good?
you.
You good, Brother Hudson?
I see a thumbs up.
Okay,
The
good.
classic Brother Hudson. Brothers, are there any other questions? Please feel free to ask. That is what this sort of open house session is for. Great question. Thank you, Brother King. What critical elements within Anchor do you believe need to be changed to help transcend the organization?
Oh, there he is. He got off mute. Okay. Ask me that question. Sorry, Brother King. I seen a problem and I was trying to fix it. Uh, what are the elements with Anchor you believe need to be changed to help transcend the organization? I think transparency is one. I think operational refinement, how we do our business in the district, is two. And just leaning on the brotherhood would probably be three. If we can, tap into what brotherhood is supposed to mean. And when I say operational refinement, we were a brotherhood first, but now we function as a business, taking best practices from business and leveraging them in the district is something that we definitely need to give an eye to. If we do not, and we continue to function in the way that we've been functioning, we won't transcend. I work at Duke Energy. I'm a network operations center manager. We deal in continuous improvement. It was good today. How do we make it better tomorrow? So looking at things through that lens is how I tend to live life, even at home. I'm not necessarily satisfied with everything that happens every day, but I write it down and we talk about, how we make incremental change. So if we can provide from the office of the district director more transparency to the brothers around what's going on. I want to overhaul our website because I feel like that can be a key communication tool for us to provide that transparency to the brothers, as well as making sure that our message is consistent across all of our platforms that we communicate with, be it website, be it newsletter, be it Instagram, be it Facebook, making sure that it is a consistent look and feel so that brothers know that it's coming from us, Anchor. So those are the elements that I think that we need to change. I think the brothers are owed explanations when they ask for them. And the first thing I've learned, or the biggest thing I've learned since working in corporate America, is it's okay when you're in meetings to say, I don't know. I think a lot of times that we get caught up in, oh, well, Alpha always has the answer. I'm not going to tell you that. If I have to go off and do my homework, I am absolutely okay with doing that because I want to make sure I get you the right answer the first time and not just what falls out of my mouth. So that transparency is absolutely key as we continue to transcend Anchor from where we are to where we want to be.
And then if I could add to that, I'm curious to get your feedback on, so, when you're thinking about the district, not only do you have to navigate the state, but you also have to navigate within the region and within the general organization. How do you see sort of the Holland administration really working within the Southern region? And then how does that, using the word, transcend to sort of the general organizational function?
I think it's partnerships, Jason. I really feel like that's what it boils down to. As I work with my fellow district directors and support the initiatives that they have, I'll ask for that same support in return. There may be initiatives that we'll work on based on the Alpha Best platform that we'll be going into the Howard administration, where we may have to partner with a Tennessee on an initiative, or we may have to partner with a Florida or a Mississippi. So making sure that we're collaborative enough in that regard where we can be a player at the table, provide value, but always be collaborative and making sure that we get the work done. Because as the Alpha Best platform moves forward, so moves forward the general organization platform, elevating the Alpha spirit under the Lonzo administration. So
Great points. Brothers, are there any additional final questions? If not, I'm going to ask Brother Holland for just sort of his final thoughts and anything else he wants to share. But are there any other additional questions anybody would like to ask that you don't think might have been covered or you just want a little bit more clarity on? Well, seeing none, hearing none. Brother Holland, what's your final thoughts? Oh, Brother Bernie, floor is yours.
You're on mute, brother.
Good evening, Brother President Caldwell, and thank you, Brother Holland, for providing this opportunity for us to reach out and be engaged. One of the things that brothers know about me in the area for is how much I really care about the college brothers in our area. And when I was the deputy director for Area 4, one of the complaints that I heard often from college brothers, regardless of what their title was in that particular chapter, is they sometimes felt like they did not get the resources and the assistance and the outreach that they felt like they needed from either their overseeing chapter or from the district level. And more recently, what I'm hearing, and I'm not castigating anyone in saying this, but more recently, what I'm hearing is these special chapters, quotation fingers, where some chapters are really receiving the assistance and the outreach and the pouring of resources to them from a district level. If given the opportunity to be the district director, what is your vision possibly for developing a team that will be a catalyst of change for our college brothers? Because I'm really seeing there's so many studies that's coming out that our college brothers are not transitioning over to the alumni chapters. So, and there's a number of reasons why, and I don't think we should unwrap that tonight on this phone call. But quickly, if there's anything that you're thinking in regards to how we can be a better resource from a district level for all college chapters, not just this college chapter or that college chapter, what is your vision on that? Or do you have a team that's going to work on something like that for the college brothers?
Yeah, so thank you for that, brother Bernie. If I can point you to anything, I'll point you to the Standard of Seven Commission. That is going to be the catalyst, I feel like, that will get our chapters one ignited around growing their membership. It'll get them an opportunity to get to the College Brothers Summit, where they can continue to develop and grow one with another. I think the recognition program in the name of Brother Charles H. Wesley is also a good opportunity to highlight chapters, big or small, across college and alumni ranks. And I feel like once we get that tighter partnership around service, we'll be able to tear down some of those, what do you call it, biases that we may or may not have, the alumni with the college and the college with the alumni. So those are the top three things I feel like need to happen. And then the fourth thing is financial. Like all the conversations I've had to this point, brothers, college brothers feel like they need financial support. In the investigation that I've done, some, not all, chapters have what they call club accounts where they're able to get money from the university. I feel like we need to reevaluate the district budget to include a club account from a district perspective, where we put the business process in place for those brothers, those chapters to submit requisitions based on some type of justification that the Standard of Seven Commission team will put in place to potentially get funding for support. And then it also takes their leader being visible and having engaging conversation with them. I believe in leading from the front, but I also believe in leading arm in arm. I'm not going to sit in an ivory tower. I'm a boots on the ground type of kind of leader. So you'll find me really engaged with what the college brothers have going on and asking for their support and solutions around those problems. You know, they know better than we do how they feel like a problem is solved on their campus or how a problem is solved internal to the organization because they're living it, they're experiencing it. So we have to make sure that we honor them in getting their feedback and making sure that we apply their feedback in some meaningful way.
Thank you, Brother Holland, for answering providing that answer. And just a quick follow-up question. That standard, and you're calling it the Standard of Seven
Yes.
initiative? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that on your website? Because maybe I can answer some additional questions regarding that thought process on your website.
It is not on the website, brother, but it is in the candidate profile booklet.
Okay.
Make sure that I drop that link in here before we depart.
Thank you, Brother Holland. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
To add to that, Brother Jones typed in the chat, about this conversation around undergrad brothers not feeling supported. What do you have planned to ensure that alumni chapters are also equipped with resources to help the undergraduate brothers?
It starts with mentorship, I feel like, Brother Jones. So with the Alpha Ambassador program, I want to take the senior brothers and really leverage them in a meaningful way to provide and instill that guidance, that listening ear, whatever the young alumni brother feels like he needs to be successful. When I was a chapter president, I also dabbled in the learning management space at Duke Energy. I manage the back end technical aspects of the learning management system for the enterprise. And what I've come to find is if we don't have a rigid or a identified curriculum for our new members to go through, then they probably do feel like they're floundering and they don't have the support that they need. So I also feel like it starts with the sponsor. Your sponsor, your recommender, they have to be in lockstep with you to make sure that as a new brother, you feel supported. And we also have to always close the circle. So when I'm checking with the undergraduate brothers, I'm checking with the alumni brothers. They have to be able to feel empowered to give us feedback on how the administration is going. Uh, we don't want to be surveyed to death, but I do believe in leading with data. So putting out a yearly survey just on engagement from the brothers in the district, where they feel like we're going and where we're missing the mark. Those areas where we're missing the mark, we'll go and try to put solutions in place to fill those gaps. So
Great question, Brother Jones. Thank you for that follow-up. Are there any other additional questions?
absolutely, Brother Jones.
If seeing there are none, I don't see any additional hands raised. Brother Holland, the last few minutes are yours. What else is it that you want to share tonight with the brothers?
I need to circle back to Brother King's question because he asked me what we needed to change to help transcend the organization. And I said brotherhood was one of the 3 points. I don't necessarily think the brotherhood needs to change, but we need more of it. So that would probably be the thing that I would change about the brotherhood, just more interaction, more spaces for us to fellowship. We all understand what our duties and responsibilities are as alpha men in the context of our chapters, but I do want to make sure that we're providing an opportunity to kick back and be in each other's space and not always be talking about business. So that would probably be the one thing that I would like to change when we have opportunities to get together. I was talking with my wife. We're in Jack and Jill. I want to bring them to the table as a partner so that we can do other things as brothers of Alpha outside the context of doing the business of Alpha. So family trips, single couple trips, those types of things. There are things that you can do. You don't have to do them on a regular basis, but just throwing little splashes of variance in there I think will help us to continue to grow and develop as men, brothers, and leaders.
And brother, if I can, I think just that idea of being able to do, whether we plan trips to the mountains or
Yeah,
couples trips or just opportunities for engagement that transcend just being in our chapter meetings or at the district conference, I think are great opportunities to, one, bring our families along, because they're loaning us at times to the fraternity. And
definitely.
being able to really invite them in and have space for them, I think will be a wonderful opportunity. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's a great idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was It actually came from a senior brother. We were sitting at dinner. I believe we were in Myrtle Beach at the regional convention, and I asked him. I said, brother, what is one thing that you miss about uh, the conferences and the conventions?" And he said, "I miss them, being somewhat in the middle of the summer, because that's how our families got to know each other. We always
Yeah,
brought our families to conventions. Our kids grew up together. They had resources outside of just the nuclear family unit to call on, and they help them build relationships. So
yeah.
there's a place for it. Most of the senior brothers have seen it somewhat subside, but it's something we need to give a renewed focus to. As we continue to impact our communities, we need to make sure that we're taking care of home too.
Absolutely. Brothers, I would like to thank each and every one of you all personally for joining us on this Tuesday night at 9 o'clock p.m. For this open house with Brother Luaco Holland from Area 5. We certainly appreciate you all joining us. Your questions have been rich, productive, insightful, thought-provoking, and hopefully they helped you all to see just a little bit more about what a Holland administration will look like. So again, thank you all for coming. I'm going to conclude, and Brother Holland, the last minute is yours.
Brothers, again, I echo Brother Caldwell's sentiments. Thank you for joining tonight. I really appreciate your engagement as you ask me questions, and we continue to have this dialogue and conversation. Please don't hesitate to give me a call if there's anything else that you may or may not have on your mind. And I look forward to engaging with you, brother to brother. So until next time, brothers, be well. If you haven't seen the newsletter that was referenced, the media team on the campaign does a really good job of refreshing it every week, providing really good content. So I would encourage you to go read it and get more detail on what a Holland administration will potentially look like. So thank you for your time tonight.